Let me ask you something. When you think about the history of cannabis, what year does your mind go to? The 1960s, maybe? Woodstock, the counterculture, the summer of love? You're off by about 12,000 years. New genetic research has pushed the domestication of cannabis all the way back to roughly 10,000 BCE. That places it not in a protest march, not in a rock concert, but in the Neolithic dawn of East Asia, right alongside the earliest experiments in farming, right alongside wheat, right alongside the first animals humans decided to keep instead of hunt. Think about what that means. Cannabis did not come after civilization, it grew up with it. But here's the part that almost no one covers, because the answer is more complicated and far more interesting than the question implies. For the vast majority of those 12,000 years, ancient humans were not getting high, they were building things. The plant's bast fibers, the tough stringy material running just beneath the outer layer of the stalk, were some of the most valuable raw materials in the ancient world. You could make rope from it, fishing nets, sailcloth, paper, the kind of infrastructure that lets a society move goods, catch food, and write things down. For millennia, cannabis was not a drug. It was closer to steel. Its seeds were equally valuable. Protein-dense, rich in fat, edible raw, or pressed for oil. Researchers believe it was grown as a food crop at least as much as a fiber crop. This was a plant that fed people, clothed people, and held their boats together. So when exactly did it become something else? The honest answer is that we do not know precisely. But the evidence we do have is both specific and strange enough that once you learn it, you will not forget it. In 2008, archaeologists working in the Yanghai tombs in western China excavated the grave of a man who had died around 2,700 years ago. He was a shaman, and buried alongside his body was approximately 800 grams of cannabis, enough to fill a large bag, with THC levels measured as significant. Not scattered there accidentally, placed there deliberately, buried with him the way a warrior might be buried with a sword. Let that image sit for a moment. Someone 2,700 years ago decided that this man would need cannabis wherever he was going. That finding raised a question, but a finding in the Pamir Mountains answered it. At the Jirzankal cemetery dated to around 500 BCE, archaeologists discovered wooden braziers used as incense burners. They found chemical residue inside them. When they analyzed it, they found cannabis with unusually high concentrations of THC, not the low-potency wild variety that grew naturally across Central Asia. High THC cannabis, selected for potency, burned deliberately in an enclosed burial chamber so that the mourners could inhale what came off the hot stones. This is the earliest confirmed evidence of humans intentionally getting high, not accidentally stumbling onto a psychoactive plant, intentionally selecting a high-potency variety, and designing a ritual around inhaling it. Here is what makes it stranger. They were not smoking it the way we think of smoking. There were no pipes, no rolled paper. The technique was heat applied to plant material on a stone surface in an enclosed space, so the vapor could be breathed in, what we would call a hot box. The innovation that most people today associate with convenience was, to the people who first did it, a sacred technology. As the plant spread westward through trade and migration, the range of what people did with it expanded almost as fast as the territory it covered. The same plant was being pressed into oil in one region, woven into cloth in another, compounded into medicine in another. Some people burned it, some ate it, some made resins. The form changed depending on where you were and what you needed it to do. But there is one account from a Greek historian writing in the 5th century BCE that captures the ritual use of cannabis in a way no archaeological finding quite matches. Herodotus was documenting the customs of the Scythians, a nomadic people who ranged across the Eurasian steppe. He described what happened at a Scythian funeral. After the body was buried, the mourners would construct a small enclosure of wool blankets stretched over poles. They would place hemp seeds on red-hot stones, and then, in his words, they would howl with pleasure at the vapor. Howl with pleasure. 2,500 years later, we have chemical residue from those burial sites that confirms exactly what he described. Herodotus was right. What the full arc of this history reveals is something that the modern debate around cannabis almost entirely ignores. The plant's psychoactive properties were not its primary identity for most of human history. They were one function among many, deployed with intention, in specific contexts, usually around death and ritual, and the attempt to communicate with something beyond ordinary experience. The people burning cannabis in the Pamir Mountains were not recreating, they were working. The plant that sits at the center of a modern legal and political debate has a history so old it predates writing. So layered it includes both the rope that held together ancient fishing nets and the vapor that ancient shamans breathed into burial chambers. And what is perhaps most remarkable is this. The question everyone asks about cannabis, what it does, whether it is dangerous, whether it should be legal, is in many ways the newest question. The oldest question, the one ancient humans spent millennia exploring, was something far more specific. Not, what does this plant do? But what exactly is it for? They found more than one answer, and they were not wrong about any of them.